Hi, I'm Amanda, and my family said I didn't deserve to be at my own grandmother's will reading. They called me ungrateful, distant, not worthy of a goodbye. But a week later, I got an envelope from her lawyer with my name on it. And inside was a secret that changed everything. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. You know what hurts more than losing someone you love? Being told without words that you weren't worthy of saying goodbye. Hi, I'm Amanda. And a few months ago, my grandmother, my best friend, my safe place, the one person who ever made me feel completely accepted, passed away. We all knew her time was coming. She had been sick for a while, her health slowly fading in quiet moments. But still, nothing prepares you for the actual moment. One day she's there, fragile but smiling, and the next, the world is just colder. But the real blow didn't come with her passing. It came days later when my family made something very clear. I wasn't welcome at the will reading. No call. No message. Not even one of those cold, one-line emails my mother usually sends when she wants to keep things official. I found out about the will reading the same way people find out about high school reunions or engagement announcements these days, through Facebook. My aunt had posted a group photo. They were all dressed in black, sitting around a polished wooden table in what looked like a law office. Everyone was smiling. Not one single tear in sight. And the caption? It didn't even mention Grandma. Just 7 awful words. The future looks brighter already. Briefcase sparkles. I stared at that post for 10 full minutes, feeling like someone had taken a vacuum to my chest and sucked all the air out. My heart was pounding, but not from grief. From rage. Confusion. Hurt. These people, my family, had gathered to divide up the remains of a woman they barely even visited. And I, who had spent hours, days, years by her side, was erased. I didn't even know how to react at first. I blinked a few times, thinking maybe I was misunderstanding. Maybe this wasn't the will reading. Maybe they were just... But no. I zoomed in. There was the lawyer. The papers. The smug expression on my cousin Rachel's face like she'd just won the lottery. I called my mom immediately. No answer. So I texted her, "What's going on? Why didn't anyone tell me about Grandma's will reading?" Her reply came 15 minutes later. Just one cold sentence. "You didn't deserve to be there, Amanda." I stared at the screen in disbelief. I read it over and over again until the words stopped making sense. Apparently, I didn't deserve to be there because I was ungrateful. Because I didn't come to every family dinner. Because I lived in a smaller apartment and drove an older car. Because I didn't fawn over their fake business ventures or pretend to care about their latest networking schemes. But they never said anything about the things that actually matter. Like the fact that for 3 straight years I was the only one visiting Grandma regularly in the hospital. That I held her hand while the nurses changed her for. That I brought her crossword puzzles, warm socks, her favorite lavender tea. That I sat with her for hours when the pain kept her up at night, rubbing her back the way she used to do for me when I had nightmares as a kid. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because she deserved love, real love, not the performative kind my family was always so good at faking. And now they'd locked me out of the final moment. Like I didn't matter. Like my relationship with her was invisible. I tried to move on, but it was like grief had 2 sharp edges, losing her, and then being denied my right to say goodbye properly. But just when I thought that was the end of it, something unexpected happened. A week later, I got an email. It was from a law firm. The same firm I'd seen in the Facebook photo. It was short, just a few lines, but it changed everything. "Amanda, your grandmother left something specifically for you. It's separate from the official will. She asked me to deliver it to you personally. Please let us know when you can come in." My hands were shaking as I read it. I didn't know what to expect, maybe a letter, maybe a photo album. Something small. Sentimental. When I arrived at the office, the receptionist looked up and smiled gently. "Amanda Carter?" she asked. I nodded. She stood and handed me a sealed envelope. No waiting. No explanations. Just an envelope with my name on it in my grandmother's familiar handwriting. Soft, slanted, fading with age. I sat in my car and opened it immediately. There were 2 things inside, a handwritten letter and a key. The letter began, "My darling Amanda, if you're reading this, it means they didn't invite you. I knew they wouldn't. I'm so sorry you had to find out that way. I tried to protect you from their ugliness, but I knew it would show itself in the end." I started crying instantly. She went on, "You were the only one who sat with me. who held my hand when it trembled, who really listened when I needed to talk. You never wanted anything from me. And that's why I've given you something no one else even knew I still had. The key belongs to the lake house. I bought it in your name. It's yours now. I know they'll be angry, but don't you dare let them make you feel guilty. You earned this because you loved me when it was hard to love. When I was no longer useful to them. I couldn't believe it. The lake house. Our quiet place. The one she used to take me to when I was little. Where we baked cookies and painted and played old records. She left it to me. Not them. Me. And just like that, all the pain of being excluded began to fade. Not because I suddenly had something valuable, but because I finally understood. She saw me. When no one else did. And that means more than anything in the world. I confronted my mom, first with a text, then with a call. No answer the first time. No call back. Just silence. It wasn't until the next morning that she finally replied. A single sentence. No greeting. No emotion. No explanation. You didn't deserve to be there, Amanda. I just stared at those words for a long time. Like, how do you even begin to respond to that? You didn't deserve to be there. Not, we thought you might not want to come. Not, it was a small gathering. Not even, I'm sorry, things got complicated. Just that. Like I was some villain. Like I had done something so unforgivable, so wrong, that I no longer deserved to sit in the same room as the rest of the family and hear the final wishes of the woman who raised me. I asked her why she thought I didn't deserve to be there. And she answered finally with a wall of text. It was all the usual garbage I've heard whispered behind my back for years. That I was ungrateful. That I didn't come around enough. That I didn't show up to important family dinners or holiday parties. That I didn't help out with Cousin Daniel's startup, or Aunt Lydia's loan situation. In other words, I stopped giving. I stopped being useful. I stopped playing along with their little family performance. They didn't care that I was working 2 jobs to pay my bills, or that I had just finally started therapy to deal with years of emotional neglect from, well, most of them. To them, I was selfish, distant, cold, because I started drawing boundaries. Because I said no to things that drained me. Because I decided I wasn't going to keep sacrificing myself for people who only remembered me when they needed something. But you know what they never brought up? They never mentioned that for 3 straight years I was the only one visiting Grandma in the hospital. 3 years. Not 3 weeks. Not just holidays or birthdays. 3 years of late-night Ubers, early morning coffee runs, and canceled plans. They didn't say a word about that. They didn't say how I helped her bathe when the nurses were short-staffed and she was too proud to ask for help. They didn't mention how I sat at the edge of her bed and read to her when her eyesight started to go and she could no longer enjoy the books she loved so much. They didn't remember the nights I held her hand when she couldn't sleep, when the pain was too much or her memories got foggy and she thought she was back in the 70s, waiting for my grandfather to come home from work. They didn't acknowledge any of that. While they were out having their investment meetings, their fake brunches, and their networking trips in the Bahamas. I was watching over the woman who practically raised me. She was the one who held me when I cried as a kid because my mom was too busy or too tired or too annoyed to listen. She was the one who made me grilled cheese after school and always cut it diagonally because that's the only right way. She was the one who taught me how to tie my shoes, fold a fitted sheet, and never settle for someone who talks down to me. So no, I didn't go to their shallow dinners. I didn't jump into their pyramid schemes or lend out money I didn't have. But I showed up for her. When it counted. When it wasn't convenient. When no one else would. And somehow that made me the ungrateful one? It was like I'd entered an alternate reality where everything real and good was invisible and only appearances mattered. I remember one night, maybe 2 months before Grandma passed. She looked at me while I was fluffing her pillow and said, "You're the only one who stayed." I thought she was just tired, maybe even a little confused, but now. I think she knew. She knew how they'd treat me once she was gone. She saw it coming. The judgment. The exclusion. The rewriting of the story where I was the black sheep, ungrateful, distant, undeserving. But let me be clear. I didn't take care of her to get anything. I didn't sit by her hospital bed expecting to be written into the will. I didn't read her favorite poems or bring her warm socks hoping for some grand reward. I did it because I loved her. Because she mattered. Because she made me feel seen when no one else in my so-called family ever did. I did it because it was the right thing to do. And now they want to say I didn't deserve to be there? I don't know, maybe they're right. Maybe I didn't deserve to be in a room full of people who cared more about Grandma's money than her memory. Maybe I didn't deserve to sit at the same table as people who only showed up after she was gone. Maybe I didn't deserve the fakeness, the hypocrisy, the plastic smiles. But I did deserve to say goodbye. I deserved to hear her name spoken with love. I deserved to be included in the moment that marked the end of a life that meant everything to me. And they took that from me. But you know what they couldn't take? The truth. The quiet, simple, powerful truth that for those last 3 years of her life, I was there. And they weren't. And deep down they know that. Even if they'll never admit it. A week after the will was read, without me, I got an email. It was late at night, and I was still awake, aimlessly scrolling through my inbox like I did most nights back then, just trying to distract myself from everything. I almost deleted it without even reading. The subject line was simple, confidential, Amanda Carter. I opened it, expecting it to be spam, maybe some newsletter I forgot to unsubscribe from. But it wasn't. It was from my grandmother's lawyer. Not a reply all. Not a forwarded message from someone in the family. Just a private, direct email. And it said, Amanda, there is a separate document your grandmother instructed me to deliver to you personally. Can you come in this week? I remember reading it 3 times thinking, is this real? Why would Grandma leave something just for me? They already made it clear I wasn't wanted. That I didn't belong. That I wasn't part of whatever they had planned. At first I thought it was just a formality. Maybe a sympathy letter. A thank you. A photo. A handwritten quote. Something sentimental but ultimately small. Part of me didn't want to go. I didn't want to walk into some stiff law office and be met with side eyes and polite smiles that didn't mean anything. I didn't want to be reminded again that my family had erased me. But something in that email felt different. There was no cold legal language. No copy and paste tone. Just a clear, deliberate message. Your grandmother left something for you. So 2 days later I went. The law office was downtown. One of those tall, glass buildings that looks like it could swallow you whole. I remember walking through the lobby, my palms sweaty, rehearsing in my head what I might say if anyone else from my family showed up. But when I got to the front desk and told the receptionist my name, she smiled. We've been expecting you, Miss Carter. Something about the way she said that it was gentle. Not rushed. Not formal. Like, they knew who I was. Not just by name, but who I was to her. To my grandmother. She asked me to wait for a moment, then led me through a long hallway and into a quiet conference room. Polished wood table. Big leather chairs. Not a single photo on the walls. Just books. Silence. Soft ticking from a clock on the far wall. And then the lawyer walked in. He didn't ask me how I was doing. He didn't make small talk. He just looked at me kindly and said, "This was meant for you." He handed me a sealed envelope. My full name was written across it in my grandmother's handwriting, soft and uneven, the ink slightly smudged like maybe her hands had been shaking when she wrote it. Just seeing her writing again made my throat tighten. It felt like she was there in the room with me. I held that envelope like it was made of glass. Inside, there were only 2 things, a folded letter and a single silver key. No instructions. No legal document. Just the letter. I unfolded it slowly, my hands trembling. It started exactly how she always used to start birthday cards and notes she left on the kitchen counter when I was a kid. My darling Amanda. That alone was enough to break me. I felt the tears coming before I even read another word. It had been weeks since anyone had said my name with love. The letter continued. If you're reading this, it means they didn't invite you. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I'm not. I knew they'd shut you out. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I covered my mouth with my hand. It was like she had predicted the entire thing. They think you're ungrateful because you refused to be used. Because you walked away from their drama. But I know better. I always have. I saw everything you did when no one else was watching. You were there when I needed someone. You gave me dignity when I felt like I had none left. You made me laugh on days when the pain made it hard to even smile. You never asked for anything in return. I couldn't hold back the sob that escaped my throat. She remembered. She saw me. Not the version they painted in group chats in whispers. Me. And then came the part that made my heart stop. That key? It's to the lake house. I froze. The lake house? The one we used to visit every summer when I was little? The one where we painted rocks and watched fireflies at night? The one my cousins constantly fought over like it was a prize in some game? It's yours now. I've left it entirely in your name. No one else knows. I didn't want them to ruin it. That place was always ours. It was your dream spot. You once told me you'd write a novel there one day. I hope you still do. I just sat there staring at the letter, key clenched in my hand. The lake house, mine? I couldn't process it. I still can't even now. I didn't give it to you because you were the loudest. I gave it to you because you were the most loving. And because love is what matters in the end. That was the last line. No signature. No date. Just that. Just love. I left the office in a daze. That night, I drove out to the lake house. The air was crisp. The house looked the same. Weathered but standing strong. Kind of like Grandma. I unlocked the door with trembling hands. Inside, it smelled like cedar and old books. Her favorite throw blanket was still folded on the couch. A picture of us, me at age 7, her laughing, still sat on the mantel. And in that moment, I realized they might have excluded me from the will. But Grandma gave me something better than money. She gave me a place, a truth, a legacy, and most of all, she gave me her. The letter started like this. Amanda, if you're reading this, it means they didn't invite you. I knew they wouldn't. I tried to warn you, sweetheart. That line alone shattered me. I had been trying so hard to stay composed, trying not to cry or feel anything too deeply, but the moment I saw those words written in her familiar, wobbly handwriting, everything inside me broke loose. The tears came fast, quiet but heavy, soaking the paper in my lap before I could even finish reading the next line. I know what they said about you. That you were difficult. That you were distant. I could practically hear her voice. That soft, tired warmth that always made me feel safe no matter how chaotic the world got. She never raised her voice, never needed to. Just hearing her say my name always made me feel like someone actually saw me. But I saw through them. I saw your kindness, your loyalty, your strength. Every line hit me like a memory. Like all those afternoons we spent together in the hospital, her lying there in that narrow bed, holding my hand while we listened to old music. Or the times I brought her lemon cookies because I knew they were her favorite, even though she could only take small bites. Or how she smiled when I read to her from the books she loved when her eyes got too tired to follow the words. You never asked me for anything. And yet you gave me everything, your time, your care, your love. I couldn't even breathe. In my family, love always felt transactional. You give money, you get praise. You show up, you get included. But Grandma? She never kept score. She loved with her whole heart, and she saw people for who they truly were, not who they pretended to be. She saw me. And then came the twist. That key. It's to the lake house. It's yours now. I've left it entirely in your name. I froze. My eyes locked on that one sentence like it wasn't real. I bought it when you were 6 and said you wanted a place to paint and dream. I could still remember it. Me barely tall enough to peer over the kitchen counter, babbling on about how I'd be an artist one day. How I wanted a house near water, with tall windows and shelves full of books and jars of paintbrushes. I thought she just smiled politely. I never imagined she'd actually remember. But she didn't just remember, she made it happen. I kept it a secret so they couldn't take it from you. That line said everything. She knew what they were like. She knew how they fought over things, not out of need but out of greed. How every holiday turned into a silent power play over who got what, who sat where, who Grandma seemed to favor. The lake house, it wasn't just property. It was the thing. The prize jewel. Every Christmas, every summer, every family reunion, someone brought up the lake house. How much it was worth. Who'd eventually inherit it. Who deserved it most. They bickered about who contributed to its upkeep. Even though Grandma paid for every repair herself. They argued about decor choices, landscaping, renovations that never happened. They talked about flipping it or renting it out for profit like it was some business asset instead of a piece of her soul. And through all that, I stayed quiet because it didn't matter to me. What mattered was the memories. The scent of wildflowers near the porch. The sound of Grandma humming while she cooked in that tiny kitchen. The creak of the old piano stool she refused to replace. The attic, full of boxes and dust and old photo albums that made hours disappear like magic. And now it was mine. She gave it to me. Just me. Not split into percentages. Not held in a trust. Not attached to some messy legal loophole. She planned this years ago in silence, knowing exactly what would happen when she passed. Knowing the family would circle like vultures. Knowing I'd be left out. And still, she made sure I had a piece of her that they could never touch. I just sat there stunned, holding the letter in one hand and the key in the other. The key was simple. Just a regular old silver house key, the kind you get at any hardware store. But in my hand it felt like something sacred. Like Grandma had reached across time to pull me out of the cold to say, "You were never invisible. You were never forgotten. You were never wrong to walk away from them." I thought about all those times I second-guessed myself. All the family events I skipped because I didn't want to be surrounded by fake smiles and passive-aggressive digs. All the late-night texts I never replied to. The accusations. The guilt. The silence. And now here was this woman, this steady, quiet, loving woman, telling me that she saw everything. That she never judged me for choosing peace over obligation. That she had quietly built something just for me. I imagined walking through the front door of the lake house again. I hadn't been there in years, not since they started fighting about it. I pictured the garden overgrown, the screen door squeaking open, the dust on the shelves, the smell of old wood in some warmed air. And I pictured myself there, not as a guest, not as a burden, not as the black sheep, but as someone who belonged. Grandma had given me more than a house. She gave me freedom. She gave me closure. She gave me a place where I could finally breathe without judgment or expectations. She gave me a piece of her that no one could take away. And for the first time since she died, I didn't feel alone. Word got out fast. Faster than I expected, honestly. It started with a photo. Just one photo. I didn't even mean for it to be a statement. I wasn't trying to provoke anyone or show off or send some secret message. I had simply been sitting on the dock that afternoon, the lake water still and calm like glass, the sky streaked with late summer orange, and I felt peaceful. So I took a picture. Posted it on Instagram with a caption that just said, "Home." Within hours, my phone started lighting up. Some cousin I hadn't heard from in years left a heart emoji. Another one messaged me. "Wait, are you at the lake house?" Then came the DMs. The texts. The calls. Suddenly, all the people who hadn't bothered to say a single word to me since Grandma passed were eager to reconnect. "Amanda. Long time no talk, we should totally catch up." "Hey. Just saw your pic. It's been forever. We were actually thinking of visiting the lake house this summer, would love to drop by for old time's sake." Old time's sake? You mean the same old times where you all ignored me, cut me out, called me ungrateful behind my back? The same old times when Grandma was still alive and no one was visiting her while I sat at her bedside for hours, holding her hand? Yeah. No thanks. Even my mom called. When her name flashed across my screen, I stared at it for a while. I hadn't spoken to her since the will reading I wasn't invited to. I let it ring. Then I picked up. I don't even know why. Some part of me still wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, she'd say something kind. Something real. Maybe she'd say sorry. But she didn't. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't ask if I was okay. Or how the house was, or if I needed anything. She just said, "You know your grandmother wasn't in her right mind near the end." That was it. That was her excuse. Her explanation. Her way of dismissing everything Grandma had done for me. Every word in that letter, every memory we'd built. I almost laughed. Because the truth was, Grandma had never been clearer. Every word in her letter was full of purpose. Of love. Of intention. She didn't give me the lake house out of confusion or pity. She gave it to me because I had shown up. Not once. Not for a photo op. But consistently. She chose me. Not because I was the most successful or the loudest or the most charming. She chose me because I was the one who loved her when there was nothing left to gain. I loved her when her hand shook too much to feed herself. I loved her when her stories started looping. When she couldn't remember if it was Monday or Thursday. I loved her when she felt forgotten by everyone else. And now? Now I go to the lake house every other weekend. It's quiet. Peaceful. Still filled with her energy. Her fingerprints are on everything, from the mismatched tea mugs in the kitchen, to the wildflower seeds scattered across the garden beds. I water the flowers. I trim the vines growing up the porch. I sit by the dock at sunset and talk to her. Sometimes out loud. Sometimes just in my head. I tell her about my week. I read her the first few pages of the novel I finally started writing, the one she always said I had inside me. I tell her when I feel alone. I tell her when I feel strong. And every time I walk into that little living room, I sit down at the old piano, the one she refused to replace even when the keys started sticking, and I play. Badly. Clumsily. But I play. Because she taught me. Because it reminds me of her. Because it brings me peace. The funny thing is, the calls haven't stopped. They've only multiplied. Cousins, aunts, even people I forgot were technically family. They all want to reconnect. They want to visit. They want to make things right. But none of them said that when Grandma was alive. None of them offered to help. None of them showed up. So now, I don't answer. I let the calls go to voicemail. I let the messages sit unread. Because I finally understand what Grandma meant when she wrote, "Blood makes you related. But love? That's what makes you family." That line, it stayed with me. It echoes through the rooms of the lake house. It hums in the wind outside the kitchen window. It lives in my bones now. Family isn't about who shares your last name, or who shows up when there's an inheritance at stake. It's about who sees you, who chooses you, who loves you without keeping score. That's what she gave me. Not just a house, not just a letter. She gave me the truth. And I'm holding on to it, for her, for me, and for the little girl I used to be, who once stood on that dock and told her grandmother that one day, she wanted a place to dream. Now I have it. And I'm never giving it back. And now when I sit on that dock, the wind in my hair and the sunset glowing across the water, I don't feel angry anymore. I just feel her. Her love. Her strength. Her choice. Because she saw me when no one else did. And that is more than enough. If this story touched you in any way, please leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more powerful, real-life inspired stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for being here. Until next time, take care of your heart.